That was a close game, everyone. Ranger, I'm gonna need faster rotations from you around the map. But other than that, great performance.
A close game indeed. But the outcome was nonetheless preordained. The leadership of Empress is second to none. With me by her side, our spot in the upcoming LCS is assured.
Anyway, our session is over. Please report for your conditioning in an hour. I must take my leave.
Her leave? I briefly wonder what errand she may be off to attend to as she scans the room, seeming to take a mental head count. Before stopping at me, her gaze meets mine. My heart almost skips a beat.
Desi, come with me.
Me? Right away, Empress. I follow the Empress closely through the corridors, with an eerie silence between us. We take a few turns, make our way down a couple dilapidated staircases, and soon we're heading down the path that's unfamiliar to me. The beetleless crystals are scattered throughout with greater frequency than the upper floors. Interesting. We pass by a few members in a garb I don't recognize, thick robes of various colors and lengths. They're all covered in some very magnificent embroidery. Some of them stare at me as the Empress and I walk past. I feel like an unwelcome stranger here. A burly gentleman makes his way over to us. He's quite imposing, most likely a guard at this level. Aeslye holds up her right palm to him, as if for inspection. I notice the changing colors of the beetleless crystals coming from the cracks in the walls as the guard eyes her palm, before bowing and allowing us further passage.
No, it's all right. She's with me. We have clearance.
The Empress has still not spoken a direct word to me since we left. We've stopped abruptly. I was so deep in my thoughts I neglected to notice the pair of double doors we had arrived to. The symbol of the Master Pixel, the first begotten of the Gameverse, is embroidered on both of them.
Eudora.
My name? The Empress speaks suddenly. She never calls any of us by our real names. I could hardly savor the moment in its abruptness, however, and I stumble upon my words. Yes, Aeslye. Oh no, I mean
Eudora. Relax, Eudora. Down here, you may call me by my name, Aeslye.
The Empress is giving me this privilege? I'm taken aback. But wait, here? In my fluttery days, I could almost forget about the mystery of our current circumstance. Thank you, Aeslye. But where are we? I have never been to these levels of the Ismara wing before. Am I going to be disciplined? Was Nami's performance not up to par that last game? I can do better.
No, that's not it, Eudora. Calm yourself. It's not my place to tell you much. All I can tell you is that Mr. Bennett needs us for an important task. I personally chose you to accompany me. Now, please, be on your best behavior, okay?
Before I can reply, the double doors in front of us creak open. A hooded figure in red emerges and rushes past us.
This is
muttering under their
ridiculous.
breath.
Where the hell am I gonna find something like that?
Another figure emerges from the dimly lit room, blocking our passage forward. He addresses the Empress before fixing his eyes on me.
Greetings. The Master has been expecting you. Is this your chosen squire for the task?
Yes, I've chosen Eudora. May we enter?
Of course. A word of advice, though. Don't touch anything. Good day.
Bioshock, the history of Rapture. Rapture, also known as the North Atlantic Project and the Rapture Colony, is a massive underwater city forged by the personal dreams of Andrew Ryan to escape from the political, social and religious anxieties of a post-World War II world. It was established on November 5th, 1946 and finished in late 1951. It is located at 63 degrees 2 seconds north, 29 degrees 55 seconds west, which places it at about 433 kilometers west of Iceland's capital, Reykjavik. Andrew Ryan named his city after the goal he set in mind, to create a paradise free from all people he saw as parasites, a place of true rapture. In terms of its philosophical underpinnings, Rapture can be best described as a gulch, which is a localized underground economic and social community of free-minded individuals. It differs from a commune in that it is uniquely freedom-focused and so upholds individual and property rights rather than operating by the rules of a collective community. The original goal of Rapture was to create a capitalist society free of religious and government interference, where any citizen could achieve for his or her own gain, rather than for the altruistic fulfillment of the wants of others. The world's best and brightest would be granted freedom of will and choice in Rapture, unrestrained by government, religion, and similar established institutions. Instead of abiding by the traditions and moral systems imposed by those institutions, values such as logic and scientific reason were to guide the inhabitants in the pursuit of achievement. This would-be utopia had its flaws. In Rapture's purely capitalistic society, there were no publicly funded social programs. Everything within the city was privately owned and came with a price. This included the city's food, healthcare, sanitation, and even its oxygen supply. The police and fire departments were subscription-based private companies, such as Papadopoulos Police Department and Fontaine Firefighters. There were less restrictive norms for business and labour, allowing unscrupulous business practices, but with competition and customers' choice balancing the market. This system alienated Rapture's less fortunate citizens, who, when hard times came, began to resent Ryan's society as cold-hearted and elitist. Andrew Ryan's hostility and paranoia of parasites and others exploiting Rapture's freedoms to seize power resulted in Ryan's downfall and that of his city. Ryan issued an edict, cutting contact with the outside world, which was in the midst of the Cold War, being required for the city's safety by keeping Rapture's existence secret. This enabled a man named Frank Fontaine to build a criminal empire through smuggling, and then to create and run the society-transforming Adam industry. Unlike the capitalist Ryan, the mobster could not be satisfied by mere material wealth. He wanted Rapture to be his to control completely. Fontaine, under the alias Atlas, would go on to start a civil war in the city destabilized by its addiction to Adam, and so bring Rapture's ruination. Bioshock, Origins of Rapture. Rapture began as a dream of Andrew Ryan's long before its construction. Ryan had thought about such a place at least a decade before a viable location was chosen. He had escaped to Belarus just before it became part of the Soviet Union under the rule of communism, and had worked his way to become an industrial mogul in America. He had come to view workers' unions, left-wing collectivists, politicians selling altruism, and organized religion as parasites ruining man's life on Earth. He explored the idea of a closed-off society, of collecting achievers and those who believed in the empowering of the individual and allowing them to flourish in some remote location uncontaminated by the rest of the world. When the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki ended the Second World War and the USSR was on its own path to nuclear weapons, Ryan foresaw the inevitable death of humanity in a war ending in nuclear fire. Ryan wasted no time in contacting like-minded individuals and marshalling his resources. His city, Rapture, would be built on the sea floor in the North Atlantic. One of the first involved was Sullivan, a trusted man who was already in Ryan's employment. With Sullivan's experience in law enforcement, he was made chief of Rapture's security. Ryan gathered many construction experts and secured the architects Simon Wales and Daniel Wales to draft and design for many of Rapture's buildings. Needing workers to build Rapture, Ryan hired many of the most talented and skilled engineers, workmen and mechanics. Many, like Bill McDonough, shared Ryan's ideas and saw Rapture as a new start, where they could rise above the impairments of the parasite-ridden world. Beginning in late 1945, Ryan contracted a series of companies to begin construction at the selected location between Iceland and Greenland. Ryan and his associates secured the manufacturing materials in secret so as to avoid unwanted attention. These resources were then transported by ships like the Olympian thousands of miles into the North Atlantic to the project site. There, the materials were submerged to the ocean floor via a giant, state-of-the-art submersible platform, nicknamed the Sinker. Deep-sea welders and mechanics created a foundation for the city by sinking pilings and girders deep into the rock and silt. Eventually, the Sinker was permanently anchored on the sea bottom. Prefabricated buildings with frames of aluminium were assembled near the surface, submerged and lowered using lunette rings and anchored into the foundations, thus creating the Art Deco metropolis. By November 5th, 1946, Rapture had started receiving its new residents. The major construction period continued until the end of the 1940s, with smaller projects continuing in and around the city until Rapture's construction was complete by 1951. On December 31st, 1958, a massive working-class uprising, the 1958 New Year's Eve riots, was started by Atlas, with attacks in many upper-class locations, such as the Kashmir restaurant. This evolved into a civil war between Atlas and Ryan, made worse by the effects of Adam addiction in many of the city's residents. Traditional projectile weapons were used and were joined by combat-type plasmids, first by Atlas's splicers and later employed by Ryan supporters. The major conflict lasted about 4 months, with the continuing violence causing great deterioration to cohesive society and infrastructure in Rapture. In the multiplayer mode of Bioshock 2, the player gets to participate in the warfare which was part of the fall of Rapture. In the end, the majority of the population either became splicers or were killed off by them, while others committed suicide or died of starvation. Thus, stable society in Rapture came to an end.
You focus on the wrong shit. Why these niggas talk shit? I pull out my car, then I pull up to the stars, bitch. She wanna go far shit. I be on my Mars shit. You know I be soaring. They see me, I be scoring.